Cognitive psychology is the study of mental processes such as attention, language use, memory, perception, problem solving, creativity, and thinking, and how they influence behavior. The father of cognitive psychology, Ulrich, nicknamed Dick Neisser, and others started this cognitive mental line of thinking as a way to combat the ideas of behaviorism. Behaviorism is a psychological idea that all behaviors are acquired through interactions with the environment. Dick disagreed with these ideas and believed they limited the study of psychology. So he brought these different mental processes together to form the basis of cognitive psychology and brought in our idea of the mental capacity of the mind. Real-life application. Cognitive psychologists work on studying mental processes and how the mind works instead of focusing on outside stimuli and how they affect people. Many professionals will work with their patients, focusing on topics such as their memory, perception, and learning to understand how their brain works and how it may be affecting them in their everyday lives. This method of psychology can be used to help overcome some mental disabilities such as depression.
The goal of cognitive psychology is to study and analyze how the brain processes information. This includes, but is not limited to, intelligence, problem-solving, decision-making, learning, memory, attentiveness, and language.
Psychologists using this approach might ask research questions such as, which learning strategies are the most effective? How do we store and retrieve memories and information? What can improve attention span? How do we make judgments and decisions? And how do cognitive processes develop throughout childhood? One famous cognitive psychology experiment was a short-term memory experiment done by Peterson and Peterson in 1959. The procedure included memorizing a trigram, which is a 3-letter sequence made up of consonants. After seeing the trigram, participants had to perform an interference task in different time intervals. The intervals ranged from 3 to 18 seconds. They were then asked to recall the trigram. The finding of the experiment were that 50% of participants remembered the trigram after 3 seconds, and this percentage decreased all the way down to 5% at 18 seconds. This experiment established the idea that short-term memory decreased over time. Another important cognitive experiment was on moral development. This experiment was done by Kohlberg in 1958, and he tested boys aged 10 to 16. He told each boy a story involving a moral issue. He then asked them a series of moral questions. He developed his stages of moral development as a result of this experiment. These included pre-conventional morality, conventional morality, and post-conventional morality.
We will be discussing important concepts and vocab within the approach. In cognitive psychology, language refers to the cognitive ability to learn and utilize systems of communication. Some examples are spoke versus signed, while memory refers to the ability to retain information. Next, thought records are a technique designed to test the validity of thoughts. This means they are used in order to change beliefs in order to make them more logical. For example, if your teacher gives you a poor grade on your paper, it may cause you to believe the teacher dislikes you. Here you can use this technique. You must recognize that the paper is the problem and you could have worked harder on it. The teacher does not actually dislike you. Another technique is called pleasant activity scheduling. It refers to planning a quick 10-minute activity each day that brings a sense of enjoyment. The result is learning to think more positive thoughts. Situation exposure hierarchies involve placing things you would normally avoid on a list and rating them at the amount of distress they would cause you if you completed them. The goal is to work through the list starting at the least distress level. Lastly, imagery-based exposure involves prolonged imagery exposure until the distress level of the event cuts in half.
Some important psychologists are Jean Piaget, Lawrence Kohlberg, and Dick Neisser. Jean Piaget was born on August 9, 1896 in Switzerland. He focused on the development of cognitive psychology in children and came up with the 4 stages of cognitive development. The sensor-motor stage is from birth to 2 years old. According to Simply Psychology, this is, quote, knowing that an object exists even if it is hidden. The second stage is the pre-operational stage, which is from 2 to 7 years old. This is when children are able to comprehend what symbols are. The third stage is the concrete operational stage, which is from ages 7 to 11. This is when children's brains start to think logically. The last stage is the formal operational stage, which which is from 11 years old to adulthood. This is defined as when children are able to think critically and logically. Lawrence Kohlberg was born on October 25, 1927 in New York and taught at Harvard. He came up with a theory of moral development, which is a 6-stage theory that describes how children acquire and act upon morals. Dick Nasser was born on December 8, 1928 in Germany and attended Harvard. He was known for looking at the human mind in a new way. Cornell.edu says, quote, he held that memory, perception, and other internal thought processes could be studied and measured, work that was aided by growing computing power.